Hey, Chris coming back with you on Cease's Aquatic Adventures. And in case you guys don't know me, I am trying to do this in one shot. I don't like doing any editing or redoing videos, but I may do a couple of these because I do make mistakes and I do it differently. If I make a mistake as I'm recording myself, I usually stop what I'm doing and move on. Um, or do another one, erase it. I've done that many times. Takes me sometimes, 45 minutes just to do one video because I'm always starting over again, which I wish I didn't have to do that, but I don't have anybody to edit videos. I certainly don't edit videos. I don't have time to do it. Um, Everything I do is pretty much off the top of my head. But I actually wrote some stuff down for this topic that I want to talk about today, and what I wanted to get into before I don't want to forget anything. So I try to write everything down before I did this video. I think it's important because we're moving forward in our channel. Um, I checked today, and we're finally over 300 subs, which is amazing. I want to thank you guys so much for for subscribing and telling people about us. And we're all about education and just telling you how we do things. And what it doesn't make me right, it's just how I do things. And we try to make it easier for people so um, they don't leave the hobby. A lot of people are asking me questions about doing fish tanks, and I make it simple for them. I'll actually go there and I'll explain to them what I mean. Um, and it actually has worked for some people, and some people it doesn't work for. Like if I give advice on a Facebook page, some people don't like the advice, and that's perfectly fine. But like I said, there's no right or wrong. There's no bad way or right way to bad way or good way to do it. It's just the way you do it, whatever you're comfortable with. But anyway, we'll get into this. We're getting into this topic in a second here. Let me just go through this and explain to you what's going on. Um, so at 300 subs, I like to do every 2 weeks or so. I want to do a trending topic of conversation in the fish hobby. Okay, I already got like 4 topics I want to discuss, so I already got enough to do 4 videos. I don't want to go too far heavy, so I don't know how long I'll be doing it for and how long it will last. I'm not sure if people are going to be into it. I know that YouTube is trending on the short side. People making shorts, shorter videos. This one's going to be about a half an hour. I'm not going to lie. I'm trying to keep it as low as I possibly can, but I do want to go through the tanks and show you how I do things and stuff like that. So we'll get there as soon as I'm done telling you guys what our goals are and what we want to do with this channel. But um, I definitely want to do a topic of conversation. The topic right now, big, is the Florida topic, but I'll get into that another time because I'm not sure if I have enough information on it yet. So I've done a video before about, I actually did a live stream about the fish hobby in the past. You guys can go check that out. If I do have to do the link, I would. But if you go down, if you go on my YouTube channel and you look at the lives, it'll show you we did a live um, about them. You know, doing whatever they want to do to the fish hobby, which I mean, the government has nothing better to do than to stop selling aquarium fish or tropical fish. And I get why there's some people that are responsible, but doesn't mean that everybody's responsible. Just like the gun laws, but I don't want to get into politics. But it is what it is. We've talked about this before. The regulations and how they want to ban stuff, and they want to ban everything now. It seems like, but the Florida topic, I'm not really too keen on yet, so I will get some more information. I'll talk about that next time. But if you guys have any ideas, also throw it out there. But every 2 weeks, we'll do a topic of conversation. I'll get to the topic in a second. What we're going to do today. Our goal is 500 subscribers. We want to get there. Once we get to 500, we'll go back to the live streams. We'll do a live stream once a month. I was doing them once a month before, or every couple of weeks. I think it might have been once a month, but wasn't getting a lot of feedback. So, and doing a live stream for an hour when there's nobody there, it's kind of redundant and kind of, I did the same thing every time and I didn't get any response. So we're gonna try to get more subscribers. We should continue to grow the channel, and then maybe we'll do some lives. And like I said, YouTube is trending down, so it's not like those live streams are popular anymore. It's different. So unless we get a really good topic of conversation, we get more people engaged, then we'll do it. But for right now, um, I'll start off with every month, every 2 weeks. And if I'm not getting a lot of feedback, I'll do it every month, and we'll go through a couple of topics. If it's not working out, we'll stop doing it. But that's our goal, is to do a topic of training topic of conversation, and then we'll do a live stream every month. That's the goal. It could be changed depending on what you guys want and what how the growth of the channel is going. Um, and then at 500, 500 we'll do a giveaway, and then every 500 we'll do giveaways. So so 500,000 we'll do giveaways, and we'll keep making changes to the channel if it keeps growing. But again, thank you very much for the growth. And I think it took us about a year and a half, 2 years to get to 300, which is amazing because I really haven't done anything to the YouTube channel. I really haven't promoted or anything like that. So it's pretty um, pretty amazing that we've been able to um, get to that point. You know what I mean? Um, so did I leave anything out? So getting back to the shorts and the hold on a second, guys, and the YouTube channel. I also do Instagram, Facebook, which I'm trying to promote. Any shorts I do are going to be going to Instagram and Facebook too, so you can check me out in that. Just like again with the politics, I don't do TikTok. I don't do whatever other ones there are. I stopped doing TikTok, and I don't do Snapchat. Don't do that anymore. I got rid of all that. So I'm only on two things. So I do YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and that's all I do. And you'll see my reels on there on Facebook, and I've done more Instagram recently, but I'll be sharing those when you see a short. I'll be doing more shorts because it's getting a little more, um, you know, in style. So we'll be doing more of those. But anyway, I'm on those three: YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and they're all doing shorts. So we're trying to grow it here. We're trying to grow that channel through Instagram. There's links on there. If you guys check out my Instagram, it's CC's 5610. So um, if you're not sure, I could write it in the. If you go to YouTube, you can follow my Instagram. So just check it out, and Facebook is my name, Chris Cullen. So if you go on there, it's just Chris Cullen. That's my name. You can find me on Facebook. I don't have a group or anything like that in there. I just do Facebook. I make jokes. Not really that funny, but yeah. Actually, the one I have two different Instagram. One's a CC. It's the letter CC 561110, and then the other one is SEA SEESEAS 5610. So those are the two Instagrams if you want to follow me on that. And that's pretty much it, guys, for the growth. And I thank you again. So the topic that we're going to talk about today is a trending topic, and I'm not going to mention any YouTubers' names who are griping over this, or having discussions or disagreements. But I will tell you that there's a big growth right now in doing um, natural tanks, which is planted tanks. Some guys do without filters. Some guys do it with filters. Um, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna mention any names, but I want to throw in my 2 cents, and I want to tell you guys what I feel about it. And um, I could just tell you um, that do what works for you, man. Like there's no right or wrong way. I've been doing aquariums for 40 years. I know certain people who are claiming the only way to do tanks is natural and only have plants for your fish. And I mean, I don't want to sit here and bash anybody or disagree with anybody because I believe plants are very beneficial to the hobby. But I also feel like it took me a while um, in my husbandry career to get to that point where I could grow plants. If you're a novice and you're just getting into the aquarium hobby, I understand that having um, plants in your tank is definitely a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but it's also not easy, And I've heard explained that it's easy for people, but some people, if you put too much together or put too much in, get it too involved, people kind of lose interest. So I agree with that too. Like I I understand if you get it right, and you understand and you do a lot of research, then yes, it could be very easy. I run, at times I'll have 25 tanks. I've had up to 38 tanks, and my tanks are so easily run that I don't need to do a lot of maintenance. Okay, I don't do a lot of algae cleaning. I don't do any of that stuff. I I do a lot of research, and I do a lot of research on the fish I keep and where I put the tanks. It's all a part of my experience. So that plays into it too. If you're an experienced fish keeper, then most likely or more likely you're going to have the ability to breed fish or to have plants or even do a saltwater aquarium, which I have downstairs, which I only put fish in there, but I did have a coral tank at one point, was very successful, but I had to sell it because I just couldn't do it in the location I was at because of salt creep. Salt creep's a big thing. If you keep a fish tank in a room with a lot of wood, that shit will just eat up wood, man. Like it's really bad. And at the time, there was no obviously there was different equipment back then. This was like 20 years ago, even more than like 25 years ago. But now there's obviously different equipment that could prevent that or stop that from happening as much. But again, it's all about what's easy for you. You know what I mean? Um, like I said, I do all kinds of different tanks. I do planted tanks. Um, I do tanks with no plants at all. I do tanks with sponge filters. Mostly, I do. I only have one canister filter that I run. Everything else is a hang on back filter. I've been doing it that way for almost 40 years. Um, and I'm not against change, but that's the way I do it, and that's what's worked for me. And I'm not gonna have anybody tell me that I'm wrong about that because I'm not. I know I'm not wrong because I've kept fish. I've had fish for, I've had fish alive for 20 years. I've had fish, right now I got fish going at least 8 to 9 years that are still completely healthy. Um, and that's just because I take care of my tanks, but I do. I, there's very very important um, things that you need to do when you're a fish keeper. 3 responsibilities. Actually, I'll call it 4. Okay. Number one responsibility that you have is um, to check and observe your fish daily. Okay. And that comes with experience. You come over age, but I go in my fish garage in my nook that I call downstairs, and the guppy tank, which is over here. Um, and I'll turn this camera around once I start doing the tanks, but um, and that tank is planted, but um, I check my fish every day. I look at the tank. I make sure I have lights on every tank, and some people say don't use lights, but I like to have a light. And sometimes if I have cichlids, I keep the light off or low light if I don't have any plants, and I'll just observe from that way. But I also have another light if I want to check on the fish if I see something that's not normal. But I check my fish every day. Check for disease. Check for you know aggression, whatever. I check my tanks all the time. Number two is to test your water coming out of your sink and in your tank. You always have to have a test kit. Some people like the test strips. I personally like the master kit. I've been using that for years. Never had a problem. I know exactly what I'm looking for when I do a test. But if you're not sure, you set up an aquarium. That is one of the most important things that you test your water and you know the nitrogen cycle. If you don't know the nitrogen cycle, I don't have enough time to explain that to you. I'm not going to be on here for an hour, but check out the nitrogen cycle videos. Just look up YouTube. You'll find it. It's easily explained. It tells you exactly what's going on and why you have to check for um, nitrite, nitrates, ammonia, and check your um, nitrates, ammonia, and your nitrite. And always want to check your pH too. So and there's test kits for that, and it tells you what your levels are, and also GH. You can check that too. But and you could also buy test kits for the water coming out of your sink. The reason why I say that is because if you are in city water like I am, um, I check my water coming out of the tap, and I also use dechlorinator. That's the only chemical I use in my tank is dechlorinator. That's only because I don't know what the hell they're putting in my water. And sometimes I check the water, and it's all different. So I just like to be safe and use a little bit of dechlorinator. Whatever brand you want to use, I personally like using the Prime. It works for me. So you know that's what I do, and that's what I use. Um, Only chemical I use. Okay. Also, if there's something wrong with the tank, you have to act right away. Okay. And I know people say, well, you're doing water changes. The only reason why you're doing that is because you're polluting your tank and you're killing your fish. No, no, that's not the reason why. The reason why you do it is because um, it's a fail safe. It's if you that's the first thing you want to do when your water is foul. You want to do a water change. Obviously you have to find out why. That's why I said check and act and and do some more investigation and change what you're doing. If you got to add plants, if your filtration is not enough, if whatever the case may be, you got to make a change, and that's the bottom line. So that's very important that you go back and you um, check it and then change it. Okay. And also, like I said, I mentioned before, know the nitrogen cycle. It tells you why it's important to have beneficial bacteria in your water. It tells you why certain things happen to your water. Nowadays, if people like to, when it's nitrogen cycle is called cycling your tank. So in the old days, well, not old days, but still, if you're setting up a new tank, you want to run a nitrogen, you want to run your tank through the nitrogen cycle, or you want to recycle your tank. But there's things you could buy now that cycle your tank, like using beneficial bacteria from another tank. I do it all the time. If I'm setting up a tank, I take a filter from another tank. I'll let it run for 2 or 3 days, and then check my parameters. And usually it's good because I have the beneficial bacteria that the tank needs for the fish to live in. Okay, your problem is your bioload. Okay, that's the next thing that I want to say. What causes pollution is your bioload and how much you feed. So if you're setting up a tank that has 2 fish and you use that filter to cycle a tank that has 10 fish, ain't gonna work. It'll get your fish going and eventually get, but I wouldn't do it. I would add some kind of you know, um, a bacteria adder or whatever you can buy in the store. You can sell, beneficial bacteria. They sell it in the store now. You can buy it, or run another filter. I run 2 filters if I'm making a change where it's going from like 15 or like 10 to 15 or 10 to 20. I'll do more than one filter and let the bio load build up, and then you have enough beneficial bacteria, like if you have pea gravel, whatever you're using, let that beneficial bacteria grow up, and then you could have a cycle, a good enough cycle tank for your different bioload. So you always your two biggest things in your tank that pollute the water is you're overstocking your tank and you're overfeeding the tank. So I feed every 4 days. I feed every 4 days. That's all I do. I don't do it. I do it once a day, 4 days a week. That's it. And I don't have any problems. And I do water changes on my tanks, um, maybe every 2 months, sometimes less if I have plants in them. And I'll tell you the reason why for that. But um, I don't overstock my tanks. I just don't do it. I did have an overstock tank when I lived in the apartment and had Oscars in there. But I was able to run a sump in that tank, and I had plenty of beneficial bacteria in there, like different sources. I had pea gravel. I used bio balls in there. There's certain things, and I'll get into that real quick. So just make sure that if you're putting fish in the tank, know the nitrogen cycle and know what your bioload is. If you're running one filter and check, there's things on the internet to tell you how many fish per volume of water, or what you can get away with, and what your bioload should be. It calculates that for you, but I always run extra filtration. You can never go wrong with extra filtration. Me personally, I run two hang-on back filters in my bigger tanks, and I just run a sponge filter on some of the smaller tanks I have. But that tank over there, Um, it actually has. You see it? All right. Oh, let me go over a little more. I'll get that. Well, that tank over there, I cut off. I have two hang-on back filters and a sponge filter. That's only because I have to have more bioload in there, and I have plants in there to help with the bioload too, because the plants also eat the nitrates and the ammonia. That's what plants are there for. They're just like filtration. It's the same thing, same premise. If you don't have plants, you can use stuff um, like we use bio balls. You can use pea gravel. We use we actually use ceramic media, lava rock. There's your sand, your rocks in there all carry beneficial bacteria. The more you have in your tank, the better off you're going to be. So, like I said, if you want to put plants in your tank, that's great. If you don't, then you have to somewhere create a space enough big enough where the beneficial bacteria can grow. So whether you add ceramic media or add pea gravel or whatever you want to add, more just regular gravel, um, you want to have more surface area for that beneficial bacteria to grow on. Okay, so when you have beneficial bacteria growing and you have plants, you're pretty much having two ways of killing or keeping your tank unpolluted, which is what the term I've used before. So you don't necessarily have to have plants. It definitely helps, no question about it. But there are ways to run tanks where you don't have to have plants. I've had Oscars where I don't trust the Oscars. They were just too playful. I have four of them. They played around. They were not aggressive at all, but they played and they like to turn things over and knock things over. I had to take a rock out of there one time because they almost knocked. They almost took put it through the glass. So I took the. There's no plants in there. I also have fish like you could put. I have these mascara bulbs that love plants. They'll eat. I put an Amazon sword in there, and they freaking shoot it all down, all gone. So that's that's what I talk about is there are some situations where you can't have it. Some people don't have the light. I have tanks in the garage that and some plants don't do well in there. There are some plants I will show you that do well, and when I go to the tanks, but there's some areas where I keep the tanks where the temperature's not right. I haven't had a problem growing a pothos. So this tank in here, and I will go to the tank and I'll show you a closer view. But I got to turn the camera around, but I will do it in a second. But that tank there has great plants. They grow great because I have a nice. It's right near the sun, and I have good lighting. So again, your filtration and what you put in your tank and how you clean your tank and how you do your tank is also a big part of how you run your aquariums. Um, so and also, like I said, look at the nitrogen cycle. Always test your water. Always check on your fish. And like I said, I don't use any chemical filtration at all. I don't use any of that stuff. I don't use Purigen. I don't use any of that stuff. Only thing I use is water, and I use a dechlorinator. That's it. That's all I use. And for your mechanical filtration, there's I use sponge filters. You could also use I use polyfill in my hang-on bag filters. I took all the inserts out. I don't use the inserts. I use ceramic media or lava rock in those, and I put them in like little bags. Put them inside the hang-on bag filter, and I use polyfill for mechanical filtration to clean up whatever debris in the water. That's how I do it. You could also rinse that out in tank water so it doesn't lose. If you're afraid of losing beneficial bacteria, which I'm not, because I have a bunch of sources that I can use for beneficial bacteria to grow on, especially in my 75 gallon, which is pretty much on a it's on a canister filter. That's the only canister filter I use. But use your equipment to your advantage too. Don't just throw them in and say and use a carbon insert and use that. You need to. I change it all the time, and I use something that always is going to stick that beneficial bacteria on. It's not going to go. Okay, so also you're creating an ecosystem in your tank. Now, for first beginners, Read about the nitrogen cycle. Test your water. Always check your fish. But you also got to make sure that um, you also want to have an ecosystem too. I don't have any problem with algae in my tank. I do have all kinds of snails. I use snails for my ecosystem. I use plecos to clean up the water. You can use those fish as long as, like I said, as long as your bioload can handle it. Because the more snails you have, the more bioload you're going to have. That's the bottom line, and it can mess up your whole cycle. So when I have babies coming out of my tank, or if I have snails, I put a cucumber in there, get all the snails out of there because my bioload would be too high. That's another reason why I keep 3 different types of filtration in there, and I also run, you know, I also run some um, filtration, biological filtration on top of the sponge filter, so it collects whatever, um, you know, it collects whatever's going in through the, whatever's water going into there, whatever's eating the ammonia or whatever is killing your fish. So that's very important that you guys understand that. Make sure you don't put too much fish in there and you don't overfeed them. And then you want to make sure that you don't overstock a tank. So you want to make sure that your bioload in your filter can handle the fish that you have. The more fish you have, the more bioload you have, the more beneficial bacteria you need to put in your tank, or the more plants you need to put in your tank. It works both ways. No one's right or no one's wrong. And if someone tells you that if you only do it this way, you only be successful, they're completely lying to you and they're wrong. Completely wrong. There's other ways to do tanks besides just putting plants in your water or using dirt and putting plants. I don't think any of my tanks have dirt. I think all my tanks, I use sand, and I use that stuff the coal. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but we can use aragonite too. Aragonite works, but stuff you put in the tank, the rocks too, also carry beneficial bacteria. So all that stuff, it can help you. It can't hurt you putting plants in your tank. But you also have the right setup and right fish in there too. So you got to do a lot of research. Like I said, there's some fish that eat plants. Guppies, they do great. They do great in plant tanks. Great. That's also a hard water tank too, and I'll show you in a second. But I wanted to get that off my chest, and also remember, there's other things that causes stress in fish. Other things that kill your fish. It doesn't necessarily mean that your water's bad or you're doing something wrong. I literally watched a video, and I'm not mentioning any names, but I literally watched a video of the guy telling you that you're doing something wrong because you didn't do it the way he told you to do it or whatever, and this is the way that you have to do it, or you're polluting your water, whatever. I'm not getting, like I said, I'm not getting into names, but literally I saw 2 fish fighting behind him in the tank. So I feel like saying, well, what are you doing to solve that issue there? Because that issue causes more stress than any planted tank is going to give you, or any other tank is going to give you. If you have a problem with your fish fighting, I mean, that is just as bad as having bad water. You're stressing out your whole tank. So if you have, like I've been dealing with this issue in my 125. I tried to mix fish that didn't get along, and that was my mistake. But I'm still working on it, and I made some adjustments. I've moved some stuff, decor around in the tank, turn the temperature down. I actually had somebody the other day ask me why my angelfish are going at each other. What's your temperature set at? Well, it's set at 84. Well, the higher temperature you set for cichlids, they think it's breeding time. Or if the temperature changes up or low, they think it's time to breed. So you want to make sure that and breeding leads to aggression. So I had a problem right here in the angelfish tank, unfortunately. I didn't realize that it was too small. I put a male in there, and there was 3 females, and the one female killed the other 2 females, or it could have been another male. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was 2 other females. And I wasn't paying attention, and I was out in the hospital for a couple of days. I didn't notice until I got back, and the angelfish was in the corner with his mouth hanging open. And that's the problem. Like, exactly my point is, if you don't check the tanks every day and check your water, something could happen, And that's why I had to try to get somebody to come over here that knows what they're talking about with fish. The person that had him coming over here didn't know anything about fish. They just knew to feed him. And that's my fault. I should have somebody that knew what to do with fish. But again, that stress right there is the most stress you can give a fish. Also, the environment you put the tank in. Okay, if you put your tank in like a lot of traffic, fish are going to spook, And I've had fish die from smacking the head on top of the tank. I've had more fish die from stress and from aggression than I've had from bad water quality. And believe me, there's been times I've had bad water quality. Everyone gets it. Whether your filter runs out or your heater runs out, your temperature also has a lot of effect on fish too. Like I said, up and down. If you lose, I have fish outside that are living in an outside pond, no heater. It got down to 38 degrees last night. I had to put something over the top of it because I didn't have a heater. But they were fine in the morning. But they were definitely down at the bottom of the tank, and they didn't want to be at the top. It's too cold. So even stuff like that. The guys that cut me off. Um, so I'm getting into a long rant here, but I just want to make sure you guys know. And this could be a topic of any live stream. Like I said, I don't get a lot of live streams, but I want to get my point across. Is um, know your fish too. Know what kind of fish you have. Baylor sharks, mascara bobs don't like plants. They'll eat plant. They like plants. They eat plants. Like I said, at Amazon store, they ate the whole thing. There are plants you could put in there that they won't eat, but from my experience, they like to eat plants. And I actually put vegetables in their diet. Like I give them cucumber and peas, and I give them a healthy variety of vegetable. Some fish that take vegetables, they'll eat the vegetables, but they also eat the plants. It's just nature. That's what they do. So there's some things that are left out, and people want to try to get a point across, or they want you to do things their way. Um, it's whatever makes you comfortable. Like take some ideas from people, and then go with what you feel comfortable with. Unfortunately, there's times you're going to kill a fish. It happens. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible fish keeper or you're doing it wrong. There's so many different ways you can kill a fish. If there's a disease that happens, or if you put a new fish in your tank, you don't quarantine it. There's so many different things that I could tell you that could happen. Quarantining fish is probably one of the most important things if you're adding new fish to a tank. I would say you want to make sure there's no health issues. I quarantine my fish for sometimes 45 days, a month and a half. So in the end, I've kept fish in planted tanks, unplanted tanks. I've had tanks, 65% of them were planted in the Eld house. There are fish that don't have plants in them. There are fish that do have plants in them. There's fish that have sponge filters, fish that have hang-on back filters. I use canister filters. I do use some. I don't use any filters in some tanks downstairs. I got a couple of snail tanks I use for the pea puffers or the regular puffers. I don't put any filters in them. So there's so many different ways to do things, and I'll show you a tank downstairs, which is completely shows you completely how plants work. But let me get to that in a second. So before I get to my little tour, and it took me a little bit longer. It's probably going to be about 40-minute video, but that's fine. Before I go through the tanks, just make sure you guys listen to what I told you before. Go back to testing your water, know the nitrogen cycle. Do a lot of research before you do your tank. You don't necessarily have to do a tank and then throw a bunch of plants in there, throw a bunch of fish in there. You can go in there, set your tank up the way you want to set up. And like I said, you don't need to put dirt in there. You don't need to put anything else. You can put regular gravel. Pea gravel is fine. If you want to use gravel, you want to make sure you do every now and then. I don't do any gravel vacs in my tanks. I don't have some tanks that have gravel. I do, but most of the time I don't do any gravel vac. Most of my tanks have sand, or like I said, I'll get to the name of it in a second, and I'll come back. It's the charcoal stuff that I use. I use a bunch of it in my tanks. I just get the top of it. Usually I have snails in there and other bottom feeders like cories, or I like to use zebra loaches. They eat the crap out of whatever's on the bottom. So I don't really. The only thing you do when you do a gravel vac is you're taking some of that beneficial bacteria out of the tank, which you don't want to really do. If it's really dirty, then yes, you do it once a month or every other water change. That's fine. Just don't do all of it. Just do some here, some there. Don't do it all at one time, and then do a gravel vac and then change all your media and your filters. Then you're going to kill your fish and kill your cycle. Being that if you don't have any beneficial back, say if you have a hang on back filter and without any ceramic media in there or whatever type media, then and you put those carbon inserts in there, and you just do a gravel vac all the time. And you change those all the time. You're gonna lose your cycle. And like I said, that's why it's important to know the cycle. So getting back to it, and I'll get into the tanks again. Like I said before, it's whatever makes you happy, whatever you're comfortable with. Make sure you know the nitrogen cycle. Don't overstock. Don't overfeed. And set your tank up. Put fish in there. Start out. Check your water every week or so, or maybe less. Make sure your tank is cycled, and then you can start adding fish or adding plants to it. Whatever how you want to keep that tank clean. If you have to do water changes, that's fine in the beginning. It's not going to kill your fish. You're not polluting the tank. You're just taking the bad water out. If you don't have enough beneficial bacteria in the tank, not enough room for the beneficial bacteria to grow on. Okay? Like I said, if you want to use those biological media that I told you about, the ceramic media, bioballs, lava rock, and there's other stuff too, aragonite, use that too. Don't be afraid to use that. And don't listen to what people say when they tell you you're doing something wrong. Well, I shouldn't say it. If you're doing something that you like and it's working for you, don't let someone else tell you that you're doing it wrong. If it's working for you and you're keeping your fish alive, and like I said, you're testing your water all the time, and you're keeping your bio load low and not feeding enough, you'll be perfectly fine without plants. But if you do want a nice natural ecosystem, nothing wrong with having plants in the tank. If you want to have, like I have some fish that are live bearers that love plants, that's perfectly fine too. I have hard water that fish like to grow in. That's fine too. Either way is fine. There's no right or wrong. If you want to keep plants, great. But if you don't want to keep plants, it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that you're not doing the way a certain guy wants you to do it. Okay? In saying that, let me get to the tanks. I'll show you what I got, and we'll move on from there. Okay? Hold on one second. Okay, guys. So before we continue, it's black diamond blasting sand was what I use in these tanks. I forgot the name of it. It's mostly used in all my tanks, honestly. Not all of them, but most of them. Some of the older tanks have the old gravel, but this one here has the black blasting sand and also has regular sand in there too. And this is a planted tank, guys. This is a guppy tank. This is a guppy / molly tank. This is a hard water tank, actually. So, like I said before, when you do a water test kit, this you would check the hardness of the water and your pH. But like I said, the master test kit has all that stuff. Your four main ones are ammonia, nitrate, nitrite, and pH. That's what you want to check. So this tank, as you can see, has an air bubbler for more oxygen. That's only because I have a bunch of babies in there. And as you can see, we'll go through the plants. There's Java moss up here. We have the water wisteria, which I don't think is doing that well. Looks like it's almost dying. There's some roots in there. It was doing better, but I don't know what happened to that. There's an Amazon sword there. There's baby tears and baby anubias, and there's a bunch of snails in there too, guys. So sorry for this. The paper got in the way, but as you can see, there's a bunch of babies in here. There's plenty of cover. Java moss. I do use plants in this tank, and of course, your plants eat up your nitrates and ammonia. That's what they use for to grow. So it's good to have plants in there. But like I said, also I have 2 filters back there and a sponge filter, mechanical filtration, and of course you got your biological filtration. And there's no chemical. We don't use any chemicals at all. So as you can see, that tank was great. Doing fine. Perfect example of how you can use your plants. The tank is crystal clear. Water checks out great. I test my water all the time. Um, if I do need to do a water change, I will do it about 15% water change. I do water change on this tank. Just do it. I don't care if there's plants in there or not. I still do it. Um, Water changes promote breeding. It just does. If they tell you it doesn't, then they're lying to you, because it does. If you put colder water in there or warmer water, whatever it is, both sides, they will make these guys will breed more. I have another tank downstairs with the babies from here. That's one tank. Let me go to the fish garage, guys, and give you some examples of planted tanks and non-planted tanks. Okay, we're going in here. As you can see, I told you before about the stress. I put this up here because the angels get kind of spooked when I walk in here. You know, because the light's usually off. That's the light right there I use. There's a garage light that I use too. That I don't put any light in this tank right now because of I just put this tank set up. I haven't got any covers yet. Put the Baylor sharks in here. Um, and there's the African cichlids, or actually the South American cichlids. These guys are doing fine. You can see the peaceful tank. No one's really doing like swimming around. I try to keep the light off here. It just cuts down aggression. But you can see there's absolutely no plants in there. But I'm also running 3 hang-on back filters for right now. We're going to be getting a canister probably eventually. But for right now, there's 3 of those hang-on back filters and no plants in there. That's one tank that has no plants, and you can see the fish are doing great. I'm not going to turn the light on. They're nice and, quiet. The Baylor sharks can get a little spooked, so we'll leave them. Sorry, I didn't see it again. The Baylor sharks look really good. They get spooked though, so we're not going to push it too much right now. They're still acclimating to this tank, so I don't want to push it. This is the first time you guys are seeing this tank. I haven't finished it yet. I still want to do covers on it. We still got to put cans filters, but we had to get these fish in here because of aggression. We put the jaguars in here too. Just did not work out with the other cichlids. So we moved the jaguars to Vance's tank. We actually put him in the 125 over at the nail salon we have. So he's over there. Those guys are doing great. We'll let them do their thing. This is the angelfish tank, guys. You can see it on the top. I got a pothos. This does have plants in there, but as you can see, I use a sand substrate with pea gravel. This is pea gravel down here, and this tank actually had some breeding going on. So we're very excited about that. Hopefully they'll breed more. I gotta get a piece of slate in there, but also you can see I use the Java moss in here, all over the place. I also use this is actually called an onion plant, but there's a name for it actually. It's called calistratum. That plant does great in there. And the pothos, which I'm having a problem with the pothos, but for the most part, I use the Java moss for the nitrates. Java moss does work. If you put Java moss in it, it'll continue to grow, and it feeds off the nitrates and the ammonia. That's what plants do. And also the top tank, I think because I put salt in there, and the fact that there's not a lot of light in here, probably is why it's not growing great. So down here is a 55-gallon. I moved the blue acaras down here with the rainbow fish and the mascara bulbs. You can see there's no plants in there, none at all. I'm running 2 filters though in that tank. And like I said, there's rocks in there. There's plenty of place for the beneficial bacteria to grow. There's also a little ship there that I use. But all that stuff is where your beneficial bacteria grows. And this tank here is a tank that had 2 filters on. One's a big one, one's a small one. But there's beneficial bacteria for ceramic media I use, and I also have I use the polyfill, which is right here. I use in all my tanks. That's for mechanical filtration. And I'll just show you this small filter here. This is like what I do here. This is your mechanical filtration right here. And I got to change this because it's dirty. But and then down here, hold on a second. I'll show you. This is what I put in here. That's ceramic media with all that growth on there. That's all beneficial bacteria, guys. Put it back in the tank, leave it in there, and I'll change this some other time. I don't have time to do that right now, but that's your mechanical filtration. You can see it gets some into the tank, but that's perfectly fine. But this tank, if you look closely, this is act. There was at one point in here an Amazon soy. These are the um, the thinner leaf. What the hell they call it? Hold on a second. I got it written down here, guys. But this is an Amazon sword. It's a narrow leaf sword. So these two are narrow leaf swords. Okay, there's two plants in there. I got some water wisteria in there. There was some Java moss that might have ate it. Some of these sick tetras eat the Java moss. It does happen. That tank right there is another tank that has absolutely no plants. That's also just has a canister filter in there. That's an old style canister. That's like from 1970 something. I still use those in a lot of my tanks, guys. Um, one down here too, but this one is pretty much a heavily planted tank, guys. That's one of the few ones that are really heavily planted. And that's got Java fern in there, and what's the other one I have in there? Java fern. Like I forget the name of these plants, guys. I don't have these guys on YouTube remember all these plants. It's nuts. But I know that the Java fern and Anubias. No, I'm sorry, Java fern and Crips in there. But there's a lot of plants in here, and these are the type of plants if you want to grow plants that are in a kind of a tough area to grow plants, that's the type of plants you want, guys. Those Java fern and shit, I forgot the name of it already. Okay, Java fern and let me get the name here, guys. I have it written down. Crips, yeah. And that's just there's a pearl gourami there, and there's rummy nose tetras in the back there. And this tank is just a tetra tank. So those are the tanks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tanks in here. And like I said, there's 1, 2, 3 tanks that have plants in them. That's it. And I'll show you downstairs, but that's an idea of what you're looking at when there's no. That's just a grow out tank for my severums. They'll have to get a bigger tank eventually. Okay, let me take you downstairs and show you those tanks, and then we'll be done. But that's the angelfish tank with the plants in it. As you can see, I also have other areas for that stuff to grow. There's a canister filter down there. It has all your biological filtration. It has Triumph Media bio balls, and it has the lava rock. All right, guys, let me go downstairs. Okay, guys, so we're downstairs in the basement. The first tank here, the light is kind of crap, but pufferfish are in here somewhere. There's one right there, guys. This tank has no plants at all. So that's also a saltwater tank with some rocks in there for the pufferfish. Unfortunately, I can't get this light to work. It's about as good as you're going to get. We'll have to replace that light, but you know my two favorite things are lights and heaters. Drive me crazy. Anyway, that's pretty much the only thing that's in that tank. We got the light from up here, so they still got light in there. So no plants in there. This is a tank I just set up. These are the polar convict cichlids. There's no plants in there. You can see I fed them cucumber last night. That's for the plecos. There's one over here too. Plecos eat that stuff. But there's no plants in there. Some Java moss in there. This was covered with Java moss. This whole tank was covered with Java moss. I took it all out though. African cichlids don't really need plants. They sometimes they'll eat them, but or they'll uproot them. But for the most part, there's a lot of fake plants in there. Some rocks. Most of the rocks are going to collect all your beneficial bacteria. I also, for now, I'm running the this is the Eclipse filter, and there's just there's a what do you call it, a spinning I forgot the name of the color, but That's like a canister internal filter, and there's the polyfill. This one is just it collects all your beneficial bacteria, and it's actually good for to cycle a tank because there's a bunch of beneficial bacteria on there. That's what you call mechanical filtration, guys. But yeah, there's a bio wheel. That's what it's called, bio wheel. But that's a bigger bio wheel the Eclipse has, and there's a small one that I actually have up for sale up. Actually, it's over here. That's a smaller Eclipse. Yeah, these are good. I'm actually selling that one, but this is actually good to run your beneficial bacteria through. And you also have a sponge filter. If you can see on the top of there, I'm running a lot of ceramic media on top of that sponge filter, which doesn't seem to be working. Anyway, so we'll have to fix that. But as long as you got the filter on top of it, but you want to make sure that that filter's working because that's where your beneficial bacteria is. It's like someone's trying to dig up some stuff too. They probably relay some eggs. Um, but yeah, there's your sponge filter with actually have crushed coral in there too. I just like to keep the pH steady. Um, that's one thing you can do if you want to keep your pH to a certain level. Put some crushed coral in there. It doesn't mean you don't check your tank. You want to make sure you check your tank too. But keep crushed coral if the sickles like a little bit harder water, and so does the guppies. I have a bunch of crushed coral in the guppy tank too. It's always good for to increase your GH and your pH. Mostly GH because you go check your GH, and I'm not sure what the number is right now in that tank, but it'll increase your GH to where you need it to be, and also keep your pH at a certain level. So um, it's always good to have fish like cichlids and like guppies because guppies and mollies if the pH decides to go low, they tend to not breed and they don't really look good. This is a mixed tank. I have a bunch of different fish in here. There's sailfin mollies. There's a bunch of different types of barbs in there. You guys already saw this tank, but there's only thing there is in there is Java moss. That's it. So, oh, I forgot that we turned this pump off because there was so much noise. That pump there, we turned it off. That's why. So I could do the film. I was wondering why the cans, the sponge filters off. But you can see back there too. There's mollies in here, so I like to keep. Oh, there's no. I had some crushed coral in there, but I think I took it out. But I usually keep crushed coral in there too. There's your ceramic media back there. I also got a hang-on back filter that has ceramic media in it and mechanical filtration. So the same thing as I showed upstairs. So you don't really need a lot of plants, guys. Like I said, you know, only thing I have in there is Java moss, and a lot of my tanks have Java moss. Especially this tank down here. If you look to see, this is a platy tank. They had a bunch of babies. Um, it looks like the baby's hiding in Java moss. So um, I keep the Java moss in there, and it also helps with the nitrates, like I said. Um, a lot of my tanks have the Java moss. This is a baby tank, guppy baby tank. There's some Java moss in there. You see little babies in there. Like I said, I separate the babies from the tank upstairs. So they're all in there, having a good time, having a blast. And then these are the angelfish babies that the babies had upstairs. These are the eggs that were growing out. You can see no plants in there. And babies don't have any plants. I guess the only thing in there is Java moss. And in this tank here is Java moss. That's it. There's the only plants that have in Java moss. Now, the antithesis. Now, some of these tanks down here. This is a quarantine tank. This tank has septicemia, so I can't seem to get him to fix it. I have to run some kind of different medication. I will be getting that soon. But that's just a quarantine tank. And these are snails. Snails. You can see the snails and they're eating that cucumber. I keep them alive for the puffers. This is an empty tank. That's empty. And I think this is a perfect example of a plant. Yeah, I'm doing a video right there. This is a planted tank. This is a big. I'm not even sure what plant this is, but there's a lot of stuff I told you upstairs, like the narrow leaf Amazon sword. There's water wisteria in there, growing like crazy. Actually, there's a big root for this plant. I'm not sure what this plant is called. Actually, I don't remember, but it had flowers on it, but it died. But that's one beta fish in there. When they tell you betta fish can't be in anything lower than a 10-gallon. That's probably about 4 gallons filled up, and a bunch of plants. And that betta looks beautiful. Look at them. Nothing wrong with that betta. We can see everything, the scales, everything. So that's a natural tank. What they talk about. I probably don't even have to run a filter in it, but I do have a little bit of a sponge filter in there because I don't do water changes on this tank, and I don't have any biologic filtration area. It's just that sponge filter. That's it. And obviously your biologic filter will be anything on the bottom there, your sand, everything. But it also has a piece of driftwood in there. So the driftwood end would carry a beneficial bacteria, but the plants right there, that's a perfect example of how you can run a plant tank, and the fish should be beautiful. There's only one fish in there, but it's a small, 4-gallon tank, and he's doing absolutely great in there. But there's a bunch of roots, and those plants are definitely help your bioload and help your beneficial bacteria, help your water be not polluted, as the word which I heard on a video. So that's not polluted tank, but your tank isn't polluted because you also got sponge filters too. So again, there's different ways of doing fish. I'm not going to tell anybody they're wrong, but if they're saying that there's only one way to do it, it's not right. It's completely wrong. Do it the way you're comfortable with. Make sure you do your research. Make sure you know what the nitrogen cycle is. Make sure you check and test the water all the time, and that is going to be your biggest help in this whole process. So, in saying that, this is the first video we're doing probably going to be every month, but we'll see. I said every 2 weeks, but it did take longer than I thought. But if we have to do it every 2 weeks, that's fine. Every month. This is the Fish Nook, guys, and welcome back. And like I said, our count of tanks is, I think there's only one, maybe like 4 tanks down here that have plants, and not fully planted, but there's some Java moss in there. But most of these tanks just have Java moss, and that's it, and just filtration. So just goes to show you that everyone has a different way of doing things. I even have a different way of doing things. I do many different things. I experiment. I experiment with plants. As you can see, that bio that ball up there, they call it a bio ball. I pretty much experimented with that. I wanted to keep fish in there. Kept a big betta in there, and he's doing great. I also do tanks without any plants. Either way, do your research, be careful, and listen to your gut. So like I said, next time we'll do another topic video. Hopefully we'll do about the Florida stuff. And then we'll continue from there if we do get some success with this video. Okay? See you next time, guys. Remember, if you can't own them, rehome them. Please get the people to subscribe. We need to get to 500. Subscribe, like, do whatever you got to do. Comment. Don't be afraid to comment in the comments and tell me what you think I could do better, or what you think we should do a topic on next time. All right? And tell us about live streams. All right? See you next time, guys. So I just watched the whole video, okay? And before I go, I want to make a couple corrections. One, I said that there was a filter in the garage. It was in one of the smaller tanks for the grow out tank for the Severum. I said it was a canister filter. It's not a canister filter. It's a sponge filter, first of all. Second of all, when I explained to you about gravel vacuuming, I didn't really thoroughly explain it. I'm not saying that I'm against gravel vac. I'm just saying that you don't want to do gravel vac and change your filtration when you're changing those inserts, because you can kill your cycle. You definitely, if you have gravel in your tank, you definitely want to do gravel vac. But again, it depends on the type of substrate you have. Some of my substrate, I do run the gravel vac when I'm doing a water change over the top of the gravel, in case there's any debris in there that I want to get rid of. So again, the gravel vac is fine. I'm just saying don't do too much of it at the same time. I used to do half a tank at one point, then the next time I do the other half, and just go back and forth because you don't want to get rid of all of your beneficial bacteria off the gravel. I just never do. But you also want to make sure the tank is clean. That's all I wanted to say. See you guys next time.